bit of background on me if you don't know me. So I am Ben Booth, I am the CEO of MaxContact. I have worked for MaxContact in its various names for over 20 years. I started off on first line support. I did installations, and one of the useful insights I have is I've been involved in over 500 implementations of contact centers. And back in the day, that was when you used to have to actually go to site for a week and sometimes months at a time. I would train the agents, I would speak to the CEOs, the operations, and everyone in between about the implementation of contact centers. So I saw firsthand what it took to install software and all the pain points that were there, and I've seen the evolution of technology over this time. Since then, moved up in the business, and I did an MBO 3 years ago. It was a family-led business, and fast forward to where we are now. So I wanted to talk, it's not MaxContact, but as a software vendor in the industry and where we are now. And we're going through a very interesting time. Yes. So a couple of stats I wanted to start with is 75% of companies experience software regret from purchasing it over the last 5 years. And you think, why? And it was a study by McKinsey, and it equates to $29 billion. And that was a study over 1,500 companies. And it's actually quite shocking, but we're in that list. I bought software I wish I hadn't bought. And an example of that is we had a client, and I'll tell you, I will use stories from us. They left us, so they went on an acquisition trail. The board decided we're a bigger company, we want to go with a bigger vendor. Go for a bigger vendor, multi-million-pound contracts. 3 years later, they came back. So they were in that statistic after a due diligence process. They were buying technology they already knew, contact center, they weren't new to it. However, they were in that statistic and they came back to us as a vendor. So I wanted to talk a little bit, why does that happen? And the first problem that we see and what does happen from purchases we've made is that there's a big difference. SaaS, well, first off, SaaS is a relatively new industry. When I first started, it didn't exist. It was in America, and it's only been going about 15 to 20 years. So it's quite new as a technology and a new industry. And what happens is what the software can do versus how it does it are two different things. And has anyone ever implemented Salesforce, Dynamics, or SAP? We've got Salesforce, and if you sell Salesforce, Salesforce, as an example, can do anything. But you have to make it do anything. And out of the box, it's actually not very good. You think it's Salesforce, it'll have out of the packages some templates about how you sales structure, and some reports that, based on their thousands of clients, they know you want, and it doesn't. And you have to get a consultancy firm in, and they charge you about 60 grand to set it up, minimum. And then what happens is your business evolves. And 3 years later, what you implemented now doesn't work. And you either go through it again, you've got to recruit someone to do it along the way, or you've got to learn it yourself. Now that is the same for a lot of contact center software. I think speech analytics is a very good example of this. You have to keep training it as your business evolves, and it becomes too expensive, and that's where this remorse comes in. And there's been a big disconnect between what software can do versus how it does it. So on that, and you're wondering why software vendors are saying this, contact center world, that is the landscape right now in the contact center space. And there's probably more you can throw on there, to be honest. We are there somewhere, I've been told. I haven't looked. But the reason I show you this is one of the other problems we're walking into is, well, it's indecision. And also, as we're going through the evolution of technology, we don't like being sold to anymore. It's changed the way we buy. All the old methods are dying off, actually. We're going through sales 3.0s coming through. And what's happened in the industry as well is what's called indecision in the buying process, when you're trying to decide on the new technologies you're buying. And the second biggest reason all software companies lose opportunities is the client does nothing. So they don't go to a competitor, they stay there and they stick and do nothing. And there was I'm going to do a little study that was done, you'll like this. So there was an ice cream store that had 20 flavors, and you could try the flavors as many times as you want, and you could buy. They recorded how many people bought something, and then they narrowed it down to 3 flavors and did the same test. There was 40% more purchases on 3 flavors than 20, even though you had more choice. So what we've walked into, if you do outbound sales as well, this will resonate, is too many options actually stops sales. Why am I going on about this? It's because we're going through a new evolution of technology. And this is, since SaaS, this is the first evolution of technology that is happening. And you're not going to stop it. It's coming. But on that, you're not as far ahead of the curve as you think. So 40% of contact centres in the UK, and that's actually very similar for Europe, are still on premise. Now, pre-pandemic, that was 55%. We've had a bit of an acceleration when the pandemic hit. CCaaS has been around 15 years. 50% haven't implemented omnichannel yet. Now, that doesn't mean they don't do omnichannel. They haven't implemented it. So an example of that when you're looking at statistics is we had an RFP and they did 500,000 emails a month in the contact centre, but through Outlook. So they used it, but they didn't have an omnichannel system. So just be mindful when you're looking at statistics. So why do I say that? At the moment, we're walking through I call it hype of marketing campaign for AI and Gen AI that's coming. And it's going to be revolutionary, it's going to transform your business, and it's a silver bullet to all your problems. But we know it isn't. And the other thing, and this is from a software vendor's point of view, is market adoption. So on those two technologies that I've just discussed that have been around 10 years plus, we are actually, it's called Crossing the Chasm. It's a book. I am stealing this from somewhere else. I do not mind. It's a great book. Read it, especially if you're doing B2B sales. So where are we? 10, 15 years. Actually, on those two technologies, we're still in the early majority. And with the Gen AI and everything that's coming, we've got the early market adopters, and they're the people who want the newest things. They're the person who changes the phone every time a new phone comes out, even if really you don't need to. They're the ones who bought a Tesla 10 years ago when they first launched. And even those technologies, we're still in the innovators and early adopters. Now, on the other side of that, and this is the most common question I get asked, is these are the people who want a complete solution that they know works and is commercially viable. And the most common question we get asked with AI and new technology and machine learning is what is actually working that adds value or will add value to our business? Because that's what they want. Now, they're being marketed already, but they're not really proving it. And no software company ever builds some technology and markets that it didn't work. They're always going to sell you that it did. And I'd go back to people don't like being sold to anymore. So this is where we are with the latest technology. So what we're seeing from contact centers when we're talking to them is there's a bit of fear of missing out. So there's what can we adopt now to solve this problem? And what we're trying to say is you're not missing out just yet. The technology can add value, but you need to take a balanced approach to how you implement it. And we'll go into a contact center, and what we're seeing is also the market has shifted. We're in a volatile market, and it's the first time technology has come out that improves productivity, also at the market, where we're in a market where we have to improve productivity because cost of living's gone up and everything's getting more expensive. So the two are clashing. And you're getting people saying we need this technology, but also does it work from both sides? And we're saying, so I'll go back to take a balanced approach, because one of the things with this technology, and again, it's not been the same with other technologies in this industry, is it's a double-edged sword. If you implement it wrong, it can have a negative effect. And not just on customers and selling, but on your agent experience and in the contact center. I remember when we went from, so going really far back, and we saw it when we used to install predictive dialers, or any contact center system. You went from a manual dial phone system to all of a sudden, real-time dashboards, monitoring and coaching. Oh my God, the agents used to kick off. What do you mean you don't trust me? You're going to watch everything I do. You're listening on my calls. What you're doing, all of a sudden, we're going to monitor with some of the technologies every single call. And if it's not sold in the right way, you know, are we increasing productivity or are we reducing our agents? What message is that sending to your contact center? Actually, we're losing jobs. We're getting rid of you. We're going to train a model, an LLM, on our best agent. You're my best sales agent. Can I just take your recordings and train a model and get rid of everyone else? Because I want to replicate you over and over again. And this is what they're hearing. There's even interviews with agents saying that's their job, to train the model that's going to replace them. And I think with the technology, it's a people-first technology. And as I've said, you need to invest in tech that has a clear business value. So we were at the CC Expo, we were talking about it earlier, and I did a roundtable event with about 8 vendors, and there were some big vendors there, all the way up to Zoom as one. And the most adopted technology that's been released is auto-summarization. So all the fancy things you're hearing, real-time assist, next best action, all these types of technology, the one people are buying is auto-summarization. And the reason is is there's a clear business value. You can say it takes a minute to write up the notes and pass it to my CRM. I know I do 200 interactions a day, times by a minute, times by the number of agents I've got. I can put a value on that. And you can do it with auto QA. It's going to save time on auto QA. It's going to improve coaching, etc., because I don't have to listen to the whole call. I can summarize it and give feedback to the agents a lot faster, things like that. So it is a clear business value. But when we go and talk to businesses and we're being told to improve productivity, we say, well, where's the bottleneck? What productivity you want to improve? I don't know. Okay, so what's your highest number of calls into your contact center? Or where's your blocker on increasing debt collection sign-ups or sales or upsell? We don't know. Because what they don't know is they can only listen and they only have insight to so much data. And where I would start is actually unlocking the value of that data to decide where you want to go. And one of the other things to do, and I go back to the sellers and the landscape, is when you're approaching people, I have no doubt, I'm going to say this isn't just for us, where when you're buying software, they say, come on a journey with us. And then they try and sell you everything to get you to the end of the journey because that increases their profit. When you're starting this journey and when people are saying, start on the journey, do start slowly with a step and then find your own path. Because the other most common question, going back to what improves my business, Matt will tell me, it's different for all of you. Honestly, we see, I've been involved in 500 installs, we've got hundreds of clients and they're around the world, they're in different sectors, and I can take 2 clients from the same sector and actually their business operate different and what works for one doesn't work for the other. So there is no straight answer without understanding your business that anyone can tell you what is going to deliver value straight away. You need to understand it, and you need to understand the data as well. But on that, I will say, one thing I have learned moving from a reseller and being a sales company to a software company is the importance of creating a safe environment for safe experimentation. So we've got people coming up, we've seen contact centers that are doing blanket bans on AI because they're scared of it, worried about the data, security, I'll get to in a second, contraction's another one. But it is coming. And if we create a safe environment with explaining to our staff what the challenges, goals, and vision of the business is and where we're trying to get to, and we create a safe environment to experiment and let them solve the problems, then and start on that journey, I think that is going to be the best adoption for this technology. Forcing technology on where we think the problems are, honestly, in software experience, and even us buying software and implementing it in our business. So we use Copilot in development, and I'll tell you now, the junior devs like it, the senior devs hate it. So even then you get a mixed response, and it helps them develop better. So there isn't a one-fit solution. So put forward what the challenge is, create that safe environment, and start the journey, but don't try and get to their destination straight away. You're right, it's running out. So the reason I went through all that is I wanted to discuss where the market is. So we are using these technologies. We can give you, come and talk to us. We'll give you an honest answer about how good it is. I don't know if anyone saw the DPD thing. That was funny. It did make me chuckle. And that's happened. Yeah, you're laughing. You've seen it. So if you haven't seen it, DPD on their chatbot obviously adopted some Gen AI that isn't there, someone else's, and someone prompt engineered it to say DPD's crap, and then told it you're allowed to swear at me, and its response was fuck yeah. So this technology is new, and it's really new. So think about that journey, how you're going to start it. You need guardrails. I will say guardrails are underestimated with it. But where's the market going? And now this isn't shot you on us, but this is already coming over from the US. Pricing is going to change. So what's happening is there's quite a big fear of contraction in the space. Now, we all run businesses or are involved in businesses. What business wants to sell technology that could improve productivity and reduce the number of licenses you sell? And some of the bigger players are facing this right now. So if you're one of the big market vendors, what they're doing is they are already trialing, if you take all the productivity tools, we're going to triple or quadruple our agent prices. Now, this is new for us as well as vendors and software vendors. So there is going to be the market finding its way, but also the suppliers finding its way, and I think there'll be a few shocks along the way. I haven't put it on the board, but there's also regulation and legislation. You know, we're using data. What's to say, you're my best agent, I'm going to profile you. Do I have permission to profile you? Is it your IP or mine? Is it GDPR? Does it breach? These things are already being questioned in court. And then if it happens, what happens with all that work you've put in place? So legislation is another factor with this technology. I've already mentioned challenge is contraction in the space, not just for vendors, but if you're a BPO or a DCA and you bill per hour, you know, blanket bans we've seen. What if you put productivity tools in and you're billing less hours? What business wants to contract? So there's a bit of a reluctance in the market for that from both sides. If you're coming up and it's your business, then that obviously doesn't matter. You want to be more productive. And the other thing is features are still being invented every day. So go back to that adoption curve. Now that chasm, that crossing the chasm, is when it becomes proven, but also part of jumping that chasm is not by starting with the product that got you to those innovators, early adopters. You have to keep innovating on your product, which actually is what leaps you across that chasm if you ever read the book. So things are going to change, and it's proven. It's proven in any sector. It's not just software. That applies to most places. And me and Matt had a chat yesterday for an hour after work, and we came up with 2 ideas in an hour. So just to give you an idea, 2 ideas were like, everyone's focusing on inbound, customer service, vulnerability, compliance. No one's really looking, other than B2B, how to increase sales performance or debt collection productivity. Why don't we start looking at that, see what the best agent, what they're saying versus the other agents, start looking at providing that immediate feedback to agents, use that data for coaching and onboarding, because we all know coaching, onboarding and training is a problem in a contact center. We could provide micro-coaching after every call. Simple examples. You got a debt collection agent and they say, why didn't you make that payment last week, Matt? That takes Matt to all the reasons he didn't make that payment. Agents do say, why did you not make that payment? I used to listen to calls. They definitely do it. Instead of saying, when are you going to make the next payment? In which case he'll start thinking about when he's going to make that next payment. And we can start feeding those things back to agents. And we're like, that's a good idea. Then we said, well, God, there's going to be all this data, there's going to be all these dashboards. Contact centers already struggle with dashboards. There isn't a contact center I've not been in. By looking at the reports that are already there, I haven't spotted a problem. And that's just not an our solution, that's one we used to resell as well. So we were like, well, what can we do about that? I'm like, well, generative AI, why don't we talk to the contact center product? Why, at what point in my IVRs do we see the most abandoned calls? Answer. Why are we looking through the data? Why aren't we telling people what the answer is? Why can't you ask it questions? We're like, that's a good idea. That was half an hour. Now, if we're doing that in half an hour after we just finished work, what's everyone else doing? This technology has just started, and it's going to keep going. So we need to think about where it adds value to your business, and I will say think about that. I'm fed up of hearing, I don't know, we just need it. Where it adds value, it's got to be demonstrable. Start where you've got a clear return on investment and where you can measure it, and that'll get you on the journey. It builds trust in, you make your agents' lives better. And I do want to say, I think we do need to think about this technology as a productivity tool, not an agent replacement tool, because all of the technology that's come before it, that's what's ended up happening. When Google came out, I remember the days in IT, unless you had a book on the shelf and you could reference a book, you weren't great. And you didn't just, you had a network guy, you had a server guy, you had a Windows guy, you had on and on and on. Now you go in an IT room and you're expected to know a bit of everything and go on Google and work it out. And that was going to kill the IT industry when Google came out. It didn't. It just made us all more productive. And we got more complex jobs, I'll tell you. Everything got harder, as it is with technology. So it's not an agent replacement tool, it's a productivity tool. And I'm quoting a very clever person that wasn't me, that Matt gave me. So jobs won't be replaced by AI, but by people who are productive with AI. And I think that's going to be true for business too. We started rolling out some AI in our business about how to make ourselves more productive, because it can give you an edge, it can give you a USP, and it does work. But we've started slow. So for example, we haven't rolled out AI across the whole business. Me and Matt are trialing it first, and some other leadership, and we're going to see what works, and we're going to test the waters, and then start rolling it out as we see it and what is good. So I'm hoping it's a unique insight, and where I wanted to get to is, I've gone through there very quickly. The the buyers, you're the buyers, indecision and how it's tough to buy in the market, how vendors are looking at this problem, and they're looking at the early adoption, the marketing at everyone to try and work out what's working, get those early adopters on so they can innovate, cross the chasm, and then that's where they make the money. And that's how any business actually works when you're doing B2B. And then just where we are in the market with it and what is actually working. Now I do think, and I will say, we've gone out before, it is an exciting time. I hope I haven't put you off. It sounded, when I went through this before, it was like, God, this is really negative. This technology is actually really good once it's been implemented right. And the key thing is going back to software and the buyer's remorse, which I'll say it put on again, is that's the key point. It's got to be implemented right. So I'm hoping today, come and pick my brain, anyone else's, but the biggest thing, and we've said this before, look, business is hard at the moment. It has been a very volatile 3 years for everyone. I want nothing more than to see any company succeed, and not just with us. And I will offer advice the best I can, because we don't want anyone to be in that 75% who go and buy the latest technology and they wish they hadn't, and it affects your business. Because at the moment, I think we can all say we can't afford to make those mistakes, and we need to make sure it works and it delivers the value we want. And I think that's it from me. Yeah, don't be one of them. So that's actually why we started this. I'm in the Northwest. I've joined CEO communities. They're all down south, most of them, which is great. And they do breakfast clubs. Come and see us for an hour, 4 hours each, 2.5, 4 hours back if you go on Avanti. So we wanted to get a community going of contact center leaders, so you can talk about these challenges. You are all facing these challenges. We talk about this daily when we go and see clients. Share your experiences, and hopefully we can all learn together. So that's the point of it. So I'm done, and I'm going to hand you over to Jonty. If you don't know Jonty, he is the founder of Call Center Helper. I am sure you've been on the website at least once. So big round of applause for him. You don't have to talk to me.